John Cordy, and I'd like to announce the release of my new unconsciously incompetent camera course, where I teach you how to not focus and how to set up lighting to look pretty awful. But that's a course that's running this weekend, so get involved. Anyway, this video is addressing some of the questions that people have asked around the FM3 and I guess somewhat of a rival, the Line 6 HX Stomp. I don't think I could particularly pick between either device. There's things that I like about both, so mostly what I'm going to be talking about in this video is what I like best about each device, and some of the features that I really like in the Fractal world and some of the features that I really like in the Helix world. They're subtly different, and there's a kid screaming outside, so that's super cool. Things that I can't really address are questions around things like feel. I think what people mean by feel kind of really differs. For me, the main thing I'm looking for is that the tone is something I can play, and that the feel isn't off-putting, in that hopefully there's a kind of give and sag to the thing, and it's not too immediate and it's not all kind of one sound. If that's what I'm hearing, so if it is sagging a little bit like an amp does, or if it's responding to picking dynamics, I guess that's the main thing that I'm looking for. I'm responding to pickup changes. Aside from that, I can't say that I notice particularly. Mostly I'm just listening for a tone, and hopefully that's something that I can jive with and actually play. There's going to be some playing samples of 2 lead patches. So one is on the FM3, it'll be in the description if you want it. That one's called JC Fresh 2, and that's based on an ODS and a Timmy, I think. And then on the HX Stomp, I'm using my Eric Lead preset, which is also based on the Litigator, which is, in theory, is also a Dumble style amp. So hopefully they're relatively similar. I think you'll hear the Fractal. It sounds like it's quite a bit more bottom end, but I could use both of those tones. And I'm quite inspired by both of them, despite them being slightly different. So what do I like about both devices? So the Fractal FM3 has an always-on tuning indicator, which is super useful. This is a thing that I use on the Kemper a lot of the time, and basically just tells you if you're in tune without having to switch things on or off. Both units only have 3 buttons, so for the HX Stomp You basically have to use a button if you want the tuner, or you can manually go down and switch between views. But I really like that on the Fractal, you've just got a tuner which is kind of always on if you need it on the screen. So that kind of solves one of those debates, do I have 3 snapshots, or do I use a button for just like a lead? So that does a really good job of solving one of those issues when you got kind of limited buttons. One of the things I really like about the HX Stomp and the Helix world essentially is the use of snapshots. So basically, if you don't know what snapshots are, you can change pretty much any parameter. So I have 3 snapshots, a clean, a lead and a rhythm. And so you can switch states of effects and you can switch parameters, basically any parameters you like, and simultaneous and many at a time. So basically I can have one amp being clean and dirty, boost the mids for a solo, boost volume, boost sag, all that sort of stuff. So super flexible even with one preset, which is basically what I use for gigs and stuff when I had them. So the snapshots feature I think is probably for me the thing I like most out of any modelers really. And it just enables you to be super flexible within one preset, and you don't have to worry about things like gaps and stuff when you're switching between presets. That for me is the best thing about a Helix or HX Stomp. You don't have that in Fractal, but you do have this thing called channels, which basically you have, I think, 4 channels per block, so you can switch between different amps or even the same amps. So the way that I run it is I've got it in scenes mode, and then basically if you want to switch between a clean amp and a driven amp, you can do so. You just use the channels, so you can have channel A, channel B, channel C, channel D. So on channel 1 I might have like a deluxe reverb, and channel 2 I might have, for instance, I don't know, an ODS lead, like in this video. And then when I switch between scene 1, I'll have it on the clean, and then scene 2, I'll have it on the lead. Obviously you can do this across all the blocks, so that's super powerful. And I guess in the Helix world, you obviously don't have anything quite like that. You've got that snapshots thing, which I find super useful. You've also got this competing kind of channels thing, which I think is also pretty useful. Worth saying that you've got more outputs on the FM3 than the HX Stomp. You've got XLR outs, so I think that's probably a bit more gig ready. The other thing is you've got a decent IEC cable, whereas the HX Stomp, you've got its own power supply, although it can be run off things like a Strymon Zoomer and stuff like that. But I think in terms of being fully gig ready, the FM3 potentially XLR outputs and the kettle lead possibly is going to win out in that case. Although if you are a touring musician and you had a breakage, I feel like probably it'd be easier to source an HX Stomp than it would an FM3. I don't know if that's definitely the case, but I feel like they're a little bit easier to find. Whether it be in a music shop or whatever, I think you could probably find an HX Stomp without too much difficulty, or an LT, or an actual full Helix. Dual cabs you can sort of do on both devices. You can't do dual amps on the FM3. You can kind of do them on the HX Stomp, although DSP is kind of a limitation there. So there's only so much you can do with it. Talking of DSP, I think some people have run into some kind of DSP limitations on the FM3. I personally haven't, but then I'm not a crazy super user. Basically, I'm just using drive, an amp, a cab or dual cab, reverbs and delays. So I'm not, using anything wild that's going to take up loads of DSP, but I've read people that have run into those kind of limitations possibly sooner than they expected. And definitely on the HX Stomp, if you're running, some of the more powerful delays and amps and stuff, or trying to do dual amps, you quite quickly kind of run out of DSP there as well. When it comes to price, I guess the HX Stomp is about half the price of the FM3. Does the FM3 sound twice as good is the question that I've been asked. Honestly, I've got no real opinion on that. I think they both sound pretty good. The user interface I find easier to use on the HX Stomp, but once you get used to the FM3, there are plenty of things you could do with it. I think if you're thinking of price, really the FM3 would be competing more so with a full Helix, I think. I think they're closer price-wise. In which case, on the Helix, you'd have 2 parallel signal paths, you've got XLR outs, and you've got many inputs and outputs. So feature-wise, I think the FM3 kind of struggles against the full Helix. Sound-wise, I think both sound good. There's not much in it for me. That's sort of why I'm relatively hesitant to make this kind of video or answer those questions, because honestly, I'm not sure. If you plugged me into either device and said, what are you playing through, I'm not sure I could tell. If you're trying to make a decision, maybe you've already got an HX Stomp or a Helix and you've never really been happy with the tones that you've got, then perhaps for you it might be something worth checking out. Or maybe you're someone who's never been happy with modelling at all. If that's the case with you, I don't think the FM3 necessarily will solve that problem for you. I think crossing over from the real amp world into the digital world is quite a big jump anyway. And if you put on top of that an interface which is relatively, can be a little bit complex, then I don't know for sure that you're going to, jump straight into great results and be super happy with it. Certainly if you were trying to edit on a gig, I think could be potentially a bit difficult. The HX Stomp, the interface I'd say is a little better, but again, if you've jumped straight from the amp world into the Helix world, I can't say for sure that you're going to be blown away. There is very little that really sounds like a good amp in a room, and that's just kind of the reality. It really depends what you're plugging the FM3 or the HX Stomp or the Helix into, how you're monitoring it to kind of compete with, a real amp. But recorded tones, I don't think it's particularly easy to tell the difference at all between a real amp and a modeler, and I'm fairly confident that I can get better results out of a modeler than I can out of a real amp. So that's kind of for me why I'm interested in the modeling stuff. So there'll be some more samples at the end, but that's me trying to kind of answer the question. The delays and reverbs in the Fractal FM3 I really like, and I think I probably prefer them ever so slightly to the Helix delays and reverbs. I think that's the video for today. If you want any of the presets, there's a buy me a coffee link for the FM3, or you can use the link for the Helix stuff. But hopefully this was vaguely interesting and sort of answers those questions a bit as much as I can. Sorry if it's not cut and dry, but for me, is the FM3 worth twice the price? Does it sound twice as good as an HX Stomp? I'm not sure it does. So if that's your question, there's your answer. Thank you for watching. If you could like and subscribe, that'd be cool. And thanks for sticking by. Cheers.